Truck or van taking up space in your home? You can call the number below today and donate it to the United Breast Cancer Foundation to help save a life. Our qualified personnel will go to your home to pick it up completely free of charge. Donating your old truck or SUV helps pay for the programs available to women affected by breast cancer who need your help. Please help us to help others. Call now.
Many seniors are paying way too much for their car insurance, and they don't even know they could pay less. If your insurance company keeps raising your rates, if your insurance company tells you that because of your age you can't get a lower premium, well, maybe it's time to speak with another insurance company.
You might save a little, you might save a lot.
Maybe hundreds of dollars a year.
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
You might save 5% a year. Maybe 10%, 15%, or even more. That could add up to several $100s a year.
How much will you save?
You may be able to save a lot of money.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
Come on, call now.
Call 1-800-934-3203, 1-800-934-3203. That's 1-800-934-3203. Call now.
Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. It's been 6 months and a day since Election Day and more than 100 days with Joe Biden in the Oval Office. The 2020 election is over, history. And yet barely a day goes by without Donald J. Trump continuing to whine about the election he lost by more than 7 million votes. But more than that, he's still pushing for election recounts, and not the kind you're thinking of. Like, for example, this recount, still ongoing in Maricopa County, Arizona. It was ordered by the Republican State Senate, and rather than being run by election officials who did their own recount last year, this one's being run by a group called Cyber Ninjas, whose CEO thinks the election was stolen from Trump and has said so publicly. That group, again with the bizarre name Cyber Ninjas, then went to court to keep what it's doing secret, in part because the Cyber Ninjas have zero experience running recounts and because the company expects to get contracts to do similar recounts in other states. So the 2020 election never really ends. See if any of this gives you confidence in the Cyber Ninjas. Observers had to sue to get access. They're broadcasting images like these online and on conservative media. And they're looking at people's actual ballots, unsupervised, with ultraviolet lights and pens the same color that voters used. So they could be tampering with those ballots, the evidence they'll probably use to claim that Trump won in Arizona. And then there's this guy and his interest in the Arizona count. He's reportedly obsessed with it, asking about it multiple times a day, talking about it constantly, even turning a wedding he crashed at Mar-a-Lago into a recount campaign stop.
Let's see what they find. I wouldn't be surprised if they found thousands and thousands and thousands of votes. So we're going to watch that very closely. And after that, you'll watch Pennsylvania and you'll watch Georgia and you're going to watch Michigan and Wisconsin and you're watching New Hampshire. They found a lot of votes up in New Hampshire just now. You saw that because this was a rigged election. Everybody knows it, and we're going to be watching it very closely.
Again, that was a wedding at Mar-a-Lago. But the never-ending quest for 2020 Trump votes is really only part of this story. The other part is the ongoing Republican effort to work the rules to their favor, restricting the vote so they can win the next election, or rather to stop Democrats from winning those elections. While at the same time, Democrats in Congress are working on a bill to expand the vote, there are night and day differences. On early voting, Republicans in state houses are restricting early votes in larger counties, expanding it in smaller, more Republican-friendly ones, and limiting Sunday voting in places, typically big early voting days for African-American communities. Democrats want to expand early voting. On voter ID, Republicans want strict ID requirements for absentee ballots, just like most Republican states have Election Day voter ID laws. Democrats want to loosen voter ID requirements. Same thing with absentee mail ballots. GOP wants to make them harder to get and use. Democrats want to ensure people can vote absentee and set rules that states must abide by. Plus, the Democratic bills would do all this. They'd make it easier to register, plus voting rights for released felons, limiting purges of voter rolls, independent redistricting, and more. While the GOP's state laws are all restrictions like these, including no food or water to people online and giving more election power to state legislatures, Republican-led state legislatures. Let's bring in our first guest to discuss. Professor Paul Gronke teaches political science at Reed College. He's considered one of the nation's foremost election experts. Professor, let's start with this recount underway in Arizona being conducted by the cyber ninjas. First of all, should we be even thinking of this as a recount? Just how different is this from traditional recounts?
Well, Cyber Ninjas, unfortunately, is a firm that was part of this sort of disinformation campaign that was going on after the election, calling into question the results. So they're not really a credible actor here. People who conduct these recounts have great deals of expertise. Typically, it's the state or local election officials. In fact, they have processes in place. Maricopa County, where the ballots come from, has conducted an audit of the election as well. So, look, they had to get these ballots out of a secure location. They had to transport them, which is not supposed to happen. It wasn't even clear that this Arizona Senate had prepared for secure locations to store these ballots. So this is not really a recount. Unfortunately, it's more political theater. It's very sad to see this still going on now, months after the election has been finalized.
Would you be surprised at all if they announced that they found lots of errors, or if they announced that Trump actually won Arizona? Do you think that's their aim here, that they can somehow change Arizona's electoral votes from the 2020 election?
Well, I think the aim during all of this has been just to kind of sow mistrust, even though they say it's in response to lack of confidence. The confidence was created by sowing mistrust. So I don't think they're going to find these kinds of changes. The positive parts is because of the pressure of folks like you, other media actors, other nonpartisan groups, we can view what's going on. There's webcams we can watch. So, I don't think there's anything that's going to happen here. It's an enormous amount of effort to count on over 2 million ballots. I think they're finding that out, but I don't think they're going to go so far as try to declare Trump the actual winner. I don't think we're going to find it. There's going to be some mistakes. There always is with millions of ballots, and these are going to be trumpeted. Hey, 3 ballots were miscounted, but that's just not going to change the outcome.
I think you may have hit on something here, Paul. Republicans keep saying that they need these recounts and all of these voter restriction laws all over the country to build back confidence in the electoral system, even though, as you said, it was Donald Trump who did the lion's share of the work to help erode that confidence. Last weekend, we heard Trump at Mar-a-Lago saying he wants similar recounts in lots of other states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, New Hampshire. It feels to me like this is going to decrease our confidence in election systems. Do you agree? And do you think that's their goal?
We're in a very tough situation when Cheney, the second in command in the Republican Party in the House of Representatives, is calling out Donald Trump for promoting what she called the big lie. The big lie has some deep historical roots, so the viewers should look up what the meaning of that term is. When Cheney is using the big lie and she's being excoriated by her own party for asking her party to accept the outcome of the election, which, by the way, let's remember, Republicans did very well from just below the top all the way down. The only place they did not do very well was in the presidential election, which was lost, and Joe Biden won. So many states, I can't say how many, but many states, more and more every year, are moving to a post-election audit process where they use statistical sciences to make sure that the results that are reported are credible, people can have confidence in them. I encourage viewers to contact their state and local election officials. These are the experts. They're the ones who know what's going on. Look, the politicians have self-interest. Let's keep that in mind. The election officials, their interest is just having an election that everyone accepts. So that's where people should turn. And yes, these efforts are just a constant kind of, I don't know if they're trying to sow distrust. What they're trying to do is make Donald Trump feel good about himself. He was the president of the United States. He's hanging out in Mar-a-Lago. The guy feels good enough.
I want to shift now to these state-by-state voter restriction laws that we're seeing, the most recent one in Florida. Is there a potential tipping point in your mind, a sense that the GOP could go too far, that could generate backlash against the party, actually help Democrats?
I think so. What has happened traditionally with these kind of laws, it's difficult to figure out the vote suppression effect of some of these laws because groups are able to mobilize in response to them. Stacey Abrams in Georgia, the best example of someone who got so frustrated after a loss to now Governor Brian Kemp that she got organized rather than being frustrated and angry and staying in a resort in southern Florida. Stacey Abrams organized, and this is what I would like my Republican friends and colleagues to do, rather than trying to suppress the vote, organize, get these new groups into the electorate, and organize and try to win their votes. So I think there's a real danger to that. I mean, look, this is a weird kind of obscure one, but not for people who cast ballots by mail. Drop boxes. Drop boxes are convenient. They're very secure. You can have cameras on them. I think if they get rid of drop boxes all over the place and make it difficult for people to get the ballots back, people are going to get frustrated. And I think there's going to be a lot of groups that are going to be mobilizing against those laws.
But then again, the impact of those laws will be in place. How big of an impact do you think those voter restrictions will have? Will they cost Democrats congressional seats and electoral votes?
I think that's not likely. Again, it's very difficult to figure out exactly what the impact is because groups mobilize so successfully. Right now where we are, so there's lots of litigation going on. There's litigation in Georgia. There's litigation in North Carolina. There's going to be litigation in Texas. So I think we're going to be fighting this fight out in the courts. Unfortunately, not where it should be, right? Again, the battle should be over getting the voters to support you. We shouldn't be battling over the rules and trying to use fairness or unfairness as a political strategy. So I don't think it's likely to happen. But look, these elections are coming down to, just very tiny margins. And that little margin may make the difference. So I guess we're going to see in 2022.
As you know, there are a pair of Democratic bills languishing in the Senate right now that have passed the House, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. In your opinion, would they counteract what state Republican parties are trying to do in state houses?
So I like both of these bills. I think the more likely one to pass is the John Lewis Act, which essentially deals with Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. What happened with the change in the Voting Rights Act is the formula that was in place really had not been updated for decades, and Congress really needed to update that formula. So that, I think, is fairly reasonable. It's sort of a statistical formula, historical formula. Is there a history of some groups being disenfranchised by your laws? John Lewis Act is a very big act with lots of pieces to it. Some advocated to break that apart and not have so much in one place. But the John Lewis Act, what it would do is it really standardize procedures. It would mean that you would move from state to state, or in each state there would be sort of a floor. It doesn't set a ceiling, it sets a floor. So there's a certain floor for a certain amount of early voting, a certain amount of no excuse absentees, a certain amount of drop boxes. Voter registration is standardized and sort of smoother, cheaper, more efficient. So I really like what what both of these bills do. I think they standardize procedures in ways so voters know what to expect. And look, the two parties then fight it out in the electoral arena. Not in the election law arena, but in the electoral arena. And that's where candidates and parties should be battling.
Finally, Professor, if those bills pass, you'll have state laws saying one thing on voting and federal law saying something else, which seems like a court case that's just destined for the Supreme Court and its 6-3 conservative lean. Not that it would necessarily matter to the current court, but how has the court ruled on these kinds of federal versus state election laws or issues in the past? And should Democrats be worried about that?
Well, this is an area of constitutional law where I am not an expert. What's going to happen is that federal law is predominant. And so the question is going to be, are you sort of as a state able to navigate within the limits that are placed within H.R. 1, S1? Are there space within those limits that, a state is supposed to have a minimum number of drop boxes? They're sort of pushing against that limit in some way. So it will be litigated. What I hope most state legislatures do is bring their laws in conformity with the federal law. And as I say, I think it sets a floor. It doesn't set a ceiling. It doesn't make you have, too many drop boxes. It doesn't, if you want to be more expansive, you can, but let's set a baseline so people can have some sort of expectation in American democracy about what the voting rules and voting access is. But yeah, it's going to be litigated. Lawyers, they're always making a lot of money on this, right? There's lots of ways for lawyers to make money, and this is another one.
You and I may have picked the wrong professions. Paul Gronke is a professor of political science at Reed College. He's also the director of the Early Voting Information Center. Paul, it is always a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.
More politics ahead on RFL tonight. We're going to spend the next couple of segments talking about the challenges facing each political party. We'll start with the Democrats and what they're concerned about, or should be, as they try to retain majorities in both houses of Congress. And then we look at the Republicans, how Donald Trump continues to haunt the party, causing yet another major fissure.
Villains, robbers, bandits, crooks, they're all over your TV screen. But the biggest thieves are behind your screen. I'm talking about the cable companies. They charge monthly subscriptions, fees, rentals, and force you to take long-term contracts. Well, it's time to say goodbye to the cable guy, because now you can watch 4K Ultra HD broadcast TV for free. Introducing Clear TV's new 4K Ultra HD design, the Premium HD. Just plug it into your TV and start watching for free. You will instantly receive top-rated network shows, local news and weather, sporting events, and even Ultra HD 4K broadcast shows, all for free. Thanks to federal government mandate, all broadcasters are required to transmit a digital TV signal through the airwaves. The new Premium Clear TV lets you bypass cable or satellite to bring network and 4K broadcast shows directly to your television. Retract the antenna to keep it small or extend them for maximum reception.
Setup was so easy. I took my Clear TV antenna, plugged it into the back of the TV, and now I can watch my favorite broadcast channels anywhere in the house for free.
We're just off the coast here in the Gulf of Mexico receiving free network broadcast HD TV. Imagine all the free shows you'll receive at home. Basic cable and satellite services can cost you up to $80 a month. That's $960 a year and almost $10,000 over a 10-year period. Watch TV in as many rooms as you like with no additional monthly fees. Stop spending money you don't have to spend. Call or go online now and get your premium Clear TV 4K Ultra HD antenna for only $19.95. It's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee. Order now and you can add a second Clear TV free. Just pay separate processing and handling. That's a $40 value for only $19.95.
I can't believe I get all these channels for free. Plus 4K Ultra HD, Clear TV is for real.
This is important news for people who took certain drugs for HIV and then suffered serious injury to their kidneys or bones. Your HIV drug could have contained TDF, an ingredient known to increase the risk of kidney disease and kidney failure. TDF has also been linked to bone fractures, bone density loss, and softening of the bones. If you or a loved one took Truvada, Viriad, Atroplus, Stribild, or Complera and then suffered from kidney disease, kidney failure, bone fractures, osteoporosis, osteopenia, or osteomalacia, call the lawyers at Davis & Crump right now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. If you or a loved one took any of these medications and were then diagnosed with kidney disease, kidney failure, bone fractures, bone density loss, or softening of the bones, call Davis & Crump right now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Our first consultation is free and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call Davis & Crump right now. Operators are standing by.
Election day was just 6 months ago, but both parties are already looking ahead to the midterms, now 18 months away. Democrats have a razor-thin margin in the House and the Senate. If Republicans gain a net gain of 1 Senate seat next election, they're back in control. Plus, they only need to flip 4 seats in the House, at least right now, to take power there. And historically, the party in power loses an average of 27 House seats in midterms, so history isn't on the side of the Democrats. That's the bad news. The good news is that Democrats have a popular president in the White House. Biden's poll numbers are 10 points above water, and his approval rating is a solid 53%. Plus, people have a positive opinion of the way the president is handling many of the major issues facing the country. As you can see from this graphic, 2/3 approve of his response to COVID, and more than half approve of his handling of racial injustice, the environment, the economy, and taxes. But Biden is underwater on immigration, gun policy, and foreign affairs. Let's bring in our next guest to discuss. Krystal Knight is a Democratic strategist. Krystal, as you know, Democrats have a single-digit advantage in the House and a tied Senate that leans in their favor, so they don't have a lot of room for error come 2022. Democrats have a popular president, and most expect an economy that is solid or even stronger, but history says the out party, the GOP in this case, almost always does better than the incumbent party. Should Democrats at this point be worried about that history?
I believe Democrats should be worried. We are seeing an unprecedented amount of support still for President Trump, former President Trump. We're seeing a strong GOP still out, playing out in the field. And so remember, half of this country still voted against President Biden. And so I absolutely believe that the Democrats should be worried. We should be looking at our messaging. We should be making sure that we're recruiting strong candidates that can win in 2022. And the seats that are up for reelection, we should be doing and pulling out every single tactic that we can to make sure that our sitting Democratic members get reelected.
I want to go through some of the things that I've read that Democrats are or should be concerned about. One of which is that the Republicans are painting everything that President Biden does as liberal overreach. That hasn't necessarily stuck on him yet, but we're going to hear more and more of that as Congress works on the president's infrastructure and family proposals. Do you think that the party is open to that attack? And if Democrats break the filibuster for things like voting rights or D.C. statehood or Biden's proposals or something else, do they risk adding credence to that Biden is too liberal attack?
Well, I mean, the things that the Republicans are saying about this president and this administration are really par for the course. Everything that Democrats do is viewed as too liberal or too outlandish or moving too far on outside of the lines. And so what I believe that the president should do in this administration is continue pushing his agenda forward, making sure that he can get every single thing through in the next, year and a half before the 2022 elections, and really just leave all of the noise to the commentators. That's what people continue to say, and they will continue to do.
Are there any issues where you think it's worth the risk for Democrats, like, for example, on voting rights, which might help them electorally in the long run anyway, even if they pay a little bit of a price for it in the court of public opinion?
Absolutely. I think that they should, do away with the filibuster for voting rights. I'm a DC native, or not a native, but I live in DC. And so I believe that DC should be a 51st state. When you're in power, you have the opportunity to do and pass as many things as you can while you hold that power. It's not guaranteed that come 2022, Democrats will be in the majority. And so I believe every single agenda item that they think is controversial, but will help them down the line, we should absolutely go ahead and pass it.
Next up are concerns about social pushback or, more commonly, wokeness. I'm sure you know the quote from Democratic strategist James Carville, who said, "Wokeness is a problem and everyone knows it. It's hard to talk to anybody today." And I talked to lots of people in the Democratic Party who don't say this, but they don't want to say it out loud. He cites people who say things like abolish the police, and that messaging could easily apply to other parts of the progressive agenda. That's essentially like the campaign that Republicans ran in 2020, the liberal takeover again, and how far short Democrats came of what they were expecting in 2020 makes it seem like the Republican argument was at least somewhat successful. That does seem like something that Democrats might have to worry about.
Listen, I believe that there is a messaging problem or messaging challenge with the Democratic Party. So we hear lots of terms like the woke left or not being woke enough, or things just, being too controversial to have a simple conversation. So should our messaging be refined? Absolutely. But I wouldn't characterize our entire agenda. I wouldn't characterize every campaign that we run as being too woke or too liberal. These are messages that we can absolutely work on and refine, but we also need to talk to our voters in simple and plain terms in ways that they understand and can connect with the party and with the issues that we are pushing forward.
Let me ask the contrarian question, if I could, Krystal. If the Republicans are going to paint every Democrat as being, a socialist waiting to show their true stripes, as they did last year and will next year as 2022 approaches, doesn't that almost free the Democratic Party to be more progressive? I mean, if you're going to be stuck with that label, may as well, do some damage with it.
Absolutely. Listen, I believe that we need to remind the Republicans every single opportunity that we get that the January 6th insurrection was on their hands. That's blood on their hands. This is the party of Trump who inspired, who lit a fire under supporters, elected officials, former military, former policemen to go and storm the Capitol. And so if the Republicans will paint us as this liberal woke party, we need to remind them that they are a party of insurrectionists, and they're agreeing and allowing these people to continue to serve our country in a number of different ways. And so with that said, if they want to label the Democrats as progressive and pushing this aggressive or progressive agenda, I believe that we should just move forward and get our agenda passed.
Do you think Democrats have been too soft with the riot and the insurrection? Have they not found a message on that yet, or are they has it just not reverberated enough?
I think that it would serve the Democratic Party well to identify a message around the January 6th insurrection, stick to it, and make sure that every single elected official, all of the talking heads, continue to say that thing over and over again. One of the things that we can absolutely learn from the Republican Party is repetition is good. Repetition is good for not only sound bites, but it's also good for voters to remember when they go to the polls.
Finally, Krystal, as we see the ongoing divide in the GOP between Trumpites and more independent Republicans, a question that came up this morning is, who should Democrats be rooting for? The anti-Trumpers are at least tethered in electoral and governing reality, and Lord knows we could use more of that. But the Trumpier Republicans might be easier to beat in a general. The downside is, of course, if enough of them win, they could take Congress back down the Trump hole. So which side should Democrats be rooting for in this GOP civil war? Which side are you rooting for?
Wow, that's a great question. What I believe to be true is that Democrats up and down the ticket need to chip away at Republican votes. And so depending and deciding who and how and where to do that, I really think that that determination should be left up to the states. So when you're running an election in a particular state or a particular county, the candidate and the party in that state has to decide whom they will reach out to and what message they will reach or what message they will share to chip away at the Republican votes that they may need to win. What we always know is that elections are won by inches. And so if we continue to inch our way, making sure that we're chipping away at Republicans who are leaning towards the Democratic Party, meaning maybe they're not 100% sold on Biden, but they're definitely not 100% sold on Trump. Those are folks that we should absolutely be messaging to, figuring out what's working, what's resonating, what's salient with those audiences, and continuing to invest in those voters.
That makes a lot of sense, Krystal, but couldn't that also lead to the election of more Joe Manchins and Kyrsten Sinemas, who are Democrats but are not exactly really helping the cause that most of the party or most of the caucus feels?
That's another great point. Well, I think the question becomes, do we want to win, do we want to win more Democratic votes? Do we want to have more Democrats in office at the congressional level and at the Senate level? And so when I think about the whole, then I have to think about the parts. And so even if we're, winning over soft or moderate Democrats, are they still better for our party long-term than just having a Republican in the seat? And so I think that that's the real question that we have to ask ourselves as a party is, would we rather have the Kyrsten Sinemas, the Joe Manchins, and we're able to move them on some of our issues, maybe not all of them, but are we better served as a country to have more Democrats representative in our elected offices than Republicans? And so if it were up to me, any day of the week, I would always choose to have more Democrats elected.
Krystal Knight is a Democratic strategist. She's also the former political director for Priorities USA. Krystal, fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And up next, that Republican rift we were just talking about grows even wider as Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney keep fighting over Donald Trump's role in the party. Looks more and more like Cheney is going to lose her place in leadership. We've got the very latest on the other side of the break.
IRS, open up.
The IRS is the most feared agency in the country and has the power to seize assets, garnish wages, and even put you in jail for back taxes and unfiled tax returns. Don't be a victim. Call Kick IRS right now and let us kick those IRS problems out of your life once and for all. Our powerful team of tax experts will fight hard for you and will not stop until we've resolved your tax problems on your terms. And if you qualify, we may even reduce or eliminate your tax debt altogether. No more sleepless nights wondering when the IRS is going to come after you. Take control of your tax problems today and make the phone call. We have an A rating with a Better Business Bureau, and we offer a 100% written guarantee, so there's nothing to lose and everything to gain. The consultation is free and the phone call is free. So pick up the phone right now and kick those IRS problems out of your life once and for all.
Call 1-800-719-3527 to get the tax help you need today. Again, that's 1-800-719-3527 or go to kickirstv.com.
This is a national healthcare alert from the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one has diabetes, listen closely. Now, regardless of your age, if you have insurance, you may qualify to receive diabetic testing supplies with little to no out-of-pocket cost. Get free delivery, free information, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers for free. Call the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline now for details. Toll free at this number. But wait, there's more. If you call right now, you could get a meter upgrade. In addition, we'll give you a free pair of diabetic socks as our special gift to you. Regardless of your age, if you suffer with diabetes and have insurance, you may qualify to get free delivery of your supplies. Call now. We can help.
Call 1-800-972-0451. 1-800-972-0451. That's 1-800-972-0451. Call now.
After an auto accident, insurance companies will try to outsmart you and pay as little as possible. At Vocate Legal, our attorneys know exactly how big insurance thinks and how to outsmart them. That's all we do, day in and day out. Call us today or visit vocate.com for a free consultation. We'll help you connect to a qualified attorney in under 10 minutes. Get a free consultation and we'll start working for you right away. Better yet, you don't pay unless you win your case. Our accomplished attorneys have the experience and knowledge to handle your case strategically and will fight to get your medical expenses paid, your car repaired, and the maximum compensation. Make the right move and partner with one of our Vocate legal attorneys at no upfront cost to you. Call us today or visit vocate.com for a free consultation.
Vocate Legal, fight smarter.
I have heard from members concerned about her ability to carry out the job as conference chair, to carry out the message. We all need to be working as one if we're able to win the majority. It's more concerned about the job ability to do and what's our best step forward that we can all work together instead of attacking one another.
That's Kevin McCarthy, the top Republican in the House this morning, talking about Liz Cheney, the number 3 House Republican, who's now fighting to keep her position in leadership. The Trumpers are going to the mattresses to try to oust her as conference chair because she's had the temerity to criticize Donald Trump, his lies about the election being stolen, and his role in stoking the Capitol riot. Multiple sources now reporting there will be a vote this month to boot her as conference chair, and it appears they have the votes to do it. McCarthy was also caught on a hot mic before that interview on Fox and Friends, and Axios says it saw the tape and heard him say, quote, "I think she's got real problems. I've had it with her. You know, I've lost confidence." Well, someone just has to bring a motion, but I assume that will probably take place. Cheney's spokesperson issued a statement soon after McCarthy was on Fox saying, quote, "This is about whether the Republican Party is going to perpetrate lies about the 2020 election and attempt to whitewash what happened on January 6th. Liz will not do that. That is the issue." That rift has led to some rather awkward moments, including this cringeworthy press conference a couple of months ago when Cheney was asked about the former president.
Do you believe President Trump should be speaking, or former President Trump should be speaking at CPAC this weekend?
Yes, he should.
Congresswoman Cheney?
That's up to CPAC. I've been clear in my views about President Trump and the extent to which following January 6th, I don't believe that he should be playing a role in the future of the party or the country.
On that high note, thank you all very much.
And then last week at a GOP retreat in Orlando, the spat between Cheney and McCarthy got even more public when McCarthy was asked whether Cheney should remain in leadership.
Is Cheney still a good fit for your leadership team, do you believe?
That's a question for the conference.
But what do you believe? What do you believe?
I think from a perspective, if you're sitting here at a retreat that's focused on policy and focused on the future of making America the next century, and you're talking about something else, you're not being productive.
Well, now's a good time to remind you of McCarthy's flip-flops when it comes to Trump and the riot. This is McCarthy in the immediate wake of January 6th.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Now compare that to McCarthy just last week on Fox News Sunday.
When I talked to President Trump about, I was the first person to contact him when the riots was going on. He didn't see it. What he ended the call was telling me he'll put something out to make sure to stop this. And that's what he did. He put a video out later.
Quite a lot later. And it was a pretty weak video. But I'm asking you specifically, did he say to you, I guess some people are more concerned about the election than you are?
No, listen, my conversations with the president are my conversations with the president. I engaged in the idea of making sure we could stop what was going on inside the Capitol at that moment in time, and the president said he would help.
Slight change in tone. Liz Cheney sadly has company in the GOP's barrel. Mitt Romney is also continuing to take flack from the Trumpers. Here he is getting booed at a Republican convention in his home state of Utah this weekend.
Now, you know me as a person who says what he thinks, and I don't hide the fact that I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues. And I'm also no fan. Aren't you embarrassed? And I'm also no fan of the president's. Yeah, sure.
My friends, this is the moment I was talking about. Please, thank you, show respect.
Romney voted to convict Trump in both impeachments, and he also pushes back against the lie that the election was stolen. And fellow GOP Senator Susan Collins of Maine is defending him.
I was appalled. Mitt Romney is an outstanding senator who serves his state and our country well. We Republicans need to remember that we are united by fundamental principles. We are not a party that is led by just one person. And I think that all of us who abide by those principles should remember Ronald Reagan's admonition to Republicans that the person who agrees with you 70 or 80% of the time is your friend, not your enemy.
And now Republican state parties are trying to punish other Republicans who joined Romney in voting to impeach Donald Trump. More than a dozen of them have voted to censure those people, and this chart shows you the ones who were censured and also the ones who were not. Even though Mitt Romney was booed in Utah, he did escape censure. His critics just didn't have the votes. And all of that just adds to the stakes for both parties in the nation come next year's midterms. Up next on RFL Tonight, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, testifies before Congress as he pushes to beef up the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. After the break, highlights from the hearing, including some of the pushback the AG got from the GOP.
When you fall and can't get help, you will lie on the floor for hours or days in constant, terrible anguish, which often results in a tragic outcome. But with Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
Don't worry, help is on the way.
With any of Life Alert's 3 emergency systems, help can be summoned immediately, whether at home,
I've fallen and I can't get up.
in the bathroom,
I've fallen in the shower.
or on the go.
Help! I'm in the park and I can't get up.
And batteries never need charging. Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-215-6582. That's 1-800-215-6582. Call now. 1-800-215-6582.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Why decide between a walk-in tub or shower when you could have both? Call now and we'll upgrade your new Safe Step walk-in tub purchase with our exclusive free shower package.
Once you turn 60, you have to realize there are limitations, whether you want to admit it or not. My walk-in tub has helped me to continue to enjoy a much better quality of life.
Call 800-775-7409. That's 800-775-7409. 800-775-7409. Call now.
Attorney General Merrick Garland testified before Congress today. He addressed his major concerns, namely voting rights and domestic terror.
My oath is to protect the Constitution and Americans from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Both forms of terrorism are of extraordinary concern to me. We never want to take our eyes off of what happened on 9/11 and of the risks that the country continues to face from foreign origin terrorist attacks on the homeland. Likewise, we have a growing fear of domestic violent extremism and domestic terrorism. And both of those keep me up at night every morning, virtually every morning. I get a briefing from the FBI in both one or the other or both areas. Since the last time I was in the Justice Department, when both were concerns as well, the lethality of weapons available to these kind of terrorists, both foreign and domestic, has increased. The consequence of the internet and encryption means that they can send information and make plans much more swiftly and in greater secrecy than could have been done before. So we have an emerging and accelerating threat, and the department is putting its resources into defending the country with respect to both. And needless to say, this is an all-of-government problem and an all-of-government solution. Department of Homeland Security, extraordinarily important in these areas. And with respect to the foreign threats, obviously our intelligence services and the Department of Defense.
Garland is pushing to increase the Justice Department's budget, especially in the Civil Rights Division, and he also wants better resources to investigate and prosecute gun violence. But Republicans on the panel pushed back on that issue, including Congressman Ben Cline of Virginia.
Current law requires a prospective buyer of a firearm to provide a photo ID to exercise this core constitutional right. Would you argue that that is a reasonable requirement?
I would, but I don't know what the requirements are.
Would you also argue that to exercise your constitutional right to vote, that requiring a photo ID, government-issued photo ID, would also be a reasonable requirement?
Question on voter ID is what kind of disparate impact it has on voters of different races, colors, and language groups, and whether it violates the Constitution by having a disparate impact on people's ability to vote. Supreme Court has held that voter ID as a concept is constitutional. And the issue is what, in any individual case, does the records show about whether it deprives certain groups protected by the 14th Amendment right to vote. That's the question. It's not a question of whether voter ID is sensible or not sensible. It's a question of how it impacts and what the cost of that impact is.
Up next on RFL, an update on COVID, including the latest on the vaccine from ABC News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jen Ashton.
Has your AC busted, computer crashed, appliance broken? Then you need ARW, American Residential Warranty.
Hi, it's me, Anthony Sullivan. And yes, you've actually caught me at home relaxing because life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with American Residential Warranty. Home appliance repairs and replacement can cause stress and cost you over $3,000 per year. But starting at less than $1 a day, ARW has home warranty plans that cover household appliances, systems, and electronics. Parts and labor included. When I needed ARW, they were there. My oven actually took a dive in the middle of making a big dinner for family and friends, picked up the phone, called ARW, they repaired it, dinner saved, that easy.
My air conditioning broke on a Sunday. I called ARW and they came out and fixed it right away.
You won't believe what ARW covers. Heating and air conditioning, washers and dryers, kitchen appliances, plumbing, water heaters, electrical systems, even pools and spas, and so much more. All you have to do is call or go to getahomeplan.com. Plus, ARW's partner with Asurion to offer protection for all your new and used household electronics for just one low price.
I dropped my laptop and ARW replaced it with a brand new one, and all I paid was a small service fee.
All plans are fully customizable and come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call now and get a home security system valued at $1,250 free with any plan. And you can trust ARW to be there when you need it. Just call ARW and a licensed technician will be dispatched to your home. All covered repairs are guaranteed.
My refrigerator broke, and not only did ARW repair it fast, they even sent me a reimbursement check for all the food that went bad.
So come on, relax. Stop worrying about unexpected breakdowns and costly repairs. Call American Residential Warranty. They'll get you covered.
Call 1-800-253-1237 or go on to getahomeplan.com and learn how you can get up to 2 months free on select plans.
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for dental visits. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for transportation to my doctor. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay to have my prescriptions delivered directly to my home. Did you?
These and more are important benefits some Medicare Advantage plans may give you. So if you're eligible for Medicare, call us right now because you could enroll in a plan with some amazing additional benefits. Call now.
I've been saying this a long time, but I really believe this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. Science behind the vaccines has been under development for decades. 2 of our vaccines were authorized under prior administrations, Republican administrations. My administration, the Democratic administration, is doing the work to get hundreds of millions of shots in arms. While we may not always agree on everything, this is one thing people across the political spectrum can agree on. So I want to thank prominent conservatives like Mitch McConnell and a large group of Republican members of Congress who've medical training, who have advanced getting vaccinated.
President Biden today once again pushing for Americans to get the COVID vaccine, as he also directed tens of thousands of pharmacies to offer walk-in appointments to get the shot. Biden's aim, getting 70% of the country fully vaccinated by July 4th. The number of cases in this country is falling, but other countries like India are going tragically in the opposite direction. The U.S. is banning travel from India by non-U.S. citizens. This is the 617 variant, has already been identified in 3 states.
All the data we have so far suggests that our vaccines are going to hold up against the variants from India.
The ban comes as hospitals in India are overrun by a record-breaking 400,000 new cases a day. The U.S. stepping up to help, sending shipments of oxygen, vaccines, and supplies. Here in the U.S., a different story. The U.S. hitting a new milestone. New coronavirus cases now under 50,000 a day for the first time since October, and more than 105 million Americans are now fully vaccinated. But the demand for shots in this country is down significantly, plunging 26% in the last 3 weeks to 2.4 million doses a day, stoking new fears from health experts.
What we want is to get to a level of herd immunity where you can go about your day-to-day life and not have to worry about exposure.
Still, states are moving to lower COVID restrictions. The governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut releasing a joint statement declaring a significant easing of COVID-19 restrictions that allow most businesses to fully reopen May 19th.
This means that the events that we all associate with a summer can all go forward.
We're ready. I'm ready. We're ready.
In New York City, 80,000 government workers returning to their offices. Subway trains running around the clock. Some still calling for safer workspaces and more vaccinations.
We are still in a pandemic and public health crisis despite what the mayor says.
Florida going even further, suspending all COVID-related public health orders statewide effective immediately.
The fact is, we're no longer in a state of emergency.
And today, Oklahoma following suit. Its governor withdrawing the state's state of emergency, declaring it's time to return to normal. And for more answers to COVID questions, we turn to ABC News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jen Ashton. Dr. Ashton, let's start with the in-public mask rules for people who are fully vaccinated. If you're indoors in a public area, it's wear a mask, period. But the CDC says you can go without a mask outdoors in some cases, but should wear them in others. So what should our rule of thumb be?
Well, first of all, I think the important distinction here by the CDC, and we talked about this, is twofold. Number one, fully vaccinated versus unvaccinated, big distinction there. And then indoor versus outdoor, big distinction there. But to your question, outdoors in densely crowded areas like concerts, parades, sporting events, still recommended to wear a mask, both to protect those around you as well as yourself. Although remember, with full vaccination status, the chance of you becoming infected is 0.008%, so low. These vaccinations have really done well in terms of their efficacy, but it's really still, out of an abundance of caution. We do expect the CDC to revise some of these recommendations and guidelines as more of the population is vaccinated and as our daily case count continues to go down. But we do also need to remember that it's possible that they could also bring some of these recommendations and guidelines back. But certainly this is good news, because who isn't growing sick of the mask by this point?
Those mask rules for vaccinated people, is that designed to protect the unvaccinated who are still walking around among us? And because in public, we're not going to know who's vaccinated and who's not?
That's really the thing, is that, remember, these recommendations, they require people to use the honor system here. And we're talking about a public health emergency and crisis that has not only direct implications to ourselves, but to the people around us. So, that's TBD. It's to be determined whether people will be honest, how people will respond to that. I think we'll expect to see everything from extreme people who are so cautious they don't want to stop wearing a mask, to people who say, well, I'm fully vaccinated even when they aren't, and then go without the mask, which obviously is dangerous, really more for that individual. Remember, it's not just the low risk of serious COVID or death, but the higher risk of post-COVID syndrome, or the so-called long haulers with debilitating symptoms that can last 6 months or more. So for me, I was unwilling to roll the dice with that risk. And I think that we will start to see people who want to go back to some degree of normal summertime behaviors and hopefully get fully vaccinated so they can safely do that.
As more and more places reopen and return to normal, people are going to have to make their own decisions about what to do and how much risk to take. What's your advice? Is there a community vaccination percentage at which you'd feel more comfortable that people resume more of their normal activities?
Well, it's a great question. I think you're right. Everyone has to make that decision for herself, for himself. What I go through in my book, The New Normal, is how to stratify that risk in pandemic times. And it really comes down to a couple of questions: time, place, people, space, whether masks are on, and whether you've been vaccinated or not. Yes, you want to know roughly what the rates are in your community or your city. You want to assess your own personal risk if you have chronic medical conditions that put you at higher risk. And again, outdoors, luckily, much, much safer environment than indoors that are poorly ventilated. But with more people in an area, the risk does go up, especially if people are not vaccinated.
CDC expected to approve vaccines for children as young as 12 next week. If a parent of a 12-year-old came to you with concerns, what would your advice be?
Well, I am a parent, and both of my children, they're college age, have been vaccinated, luckily at this point, through their jobs. And it was a massive relief to me, not necessarily because I was so worried about them, but because I was worried about their grandparents and other people with whom they're in direct contact. So, and certainly you don't want to see your child sick for any reason. I think it's important to remember that these clinical trials are being done in these age groups to ascertain safety and efficacy. There were 0 safety signals in 12 to 15-year-olds in clinical trials of the Pfizer vaccine, and the efficacy suggests the vaccine may be even more effective in this age group than in adults. So again, I think this will be a critical point in kind of turning the corner on this pandemic. And, you know, I think every parent will need to talk to their child's pediatrician and weigh the benefits versus the risks. I think the risks are exceedingly low of this vaccine, much higher of COVID, and the benefits are very, very high. And that's how I made the decision as a mother who happens to have an MD after my name.
Finally, doctor, as you've talked to people and patients, what have you found changes the mind of the vaccine hesitant? And should doctors like yourself around the country be counseling patients about the vaccines?
Well, gosh, I am every chance I get. I just spoke to some ABC colleagues about it 10 minutes before I sat down to talk with you. I think that, you know, first of all, that discussion should be calm. It should be non-judgmental. It's normal and appropriate to have questions and concerns in this setting, and always. And I think when presented with the scientific data and facts, and when you help people assess risk versus benefit, the risk of not getting vaccinated is so much higher than the risk, any risk associated with a vaccine, when we talk about the rare risk of clotting events or the rare risk of an anaphylactic or severe allergic reaction. Those are infinitesimally small risks, and the risks of COVID, serious COVID, loss of work, cognitive or cardiac effects, or hospitalization and deaths, or infecting someone else who could die are so much higher. And I think that's how people should weigh the risk versus benefit.
And with that, the doctor is out. Dr. Jen Ashton, ABC News Chief Medical Correspondent, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back to wrap up RFL. Stay with us.
8 years ago, my daughter called to say she was expecting our first grandchild. But I never actually heard her say that. And the first time my granddaughter called me Papa, I didn't hear that one either. Can you imagine? Oh, I know I lost some of my hearing, but I was embarrassed, too stubborn to admit that. For Father's Day a few years ago, Gina and Ryan bought me a nano hearing aid. And my precious Ryan, I love hearing her call me Papa. I love hearing everything again.
What have you not heard by not wearing a hearing aid? You're going to have many more special moments in your life. Don't miss hearing a single one of them. Call Nano. Order your full pair of hearing aids for only $297.
1-800-259-1401.
Make today the day you finally start hearing better again with Nano hearing aids.
1-800-259-1401. 1-800-259-1401.
Need life insurance? SelectQuote found Jacob, 40, a $500,000 policy for only $19 a month. And SelectQuote found his wife Wendy, a $500,000 policy for only $17 a month.
Our secret? At SelectQuote, we aggressively comparison shop up to 10 highly rated companies to find you the company with the best rates. Why pay more? Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
This is important news for people who have taken Zantac or its generic ranitidine and then suffered from cancer. Zantac and generic ranitidine have been linked to cancers such as bladder cancer and kidney cancer. According to the FDA, Zantac and ranitidine contain NDMA, a known cancer-causing agent. NDMA has been linked to cancers of the bladder, kidney, colon, esophagus, liver, ovaries, pancreas, and other cancers. If you or a loved one took Zantac or ranitidine and were then diagnosed diagnosed with cancer? Call the lawyers at Davis & Crump right now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call the lawyers at Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one took Zantac or generic ranitidine and were then diagnosed with bladder cancer, kidney cancer, or any of these cancers. Call now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Our first consultation is free, and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call Davis & Crump right now. Operators are standing by.
That's going to do it for this busy Tuesday night here on RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of RFL. Have a great night.
Shake your legs, shake your abs, shake your butt, shake up your entire body to a slim, firm, and sexy new you with Powerfit Elite, the breakthrough multi-directional vibration platform that helps engage all your muscles from the moment you step on it. Powerfit uses multi-directional vibration to create muscle confusion and rapidly contract and relax your muscles to help you get fit and stay fit.
It's intense. You really feel your whole body working. You could be watching TV, but you